this is a common saying, if I knew then what I know now. But we do. You and I do know now what we should have known then, or we wished we would have known then. And so this concept, let's walk down that road of the number of repetitions, the number of bends versus the weight on the bend. So we know that when I bend my knee with 300 pounds on it, that's a different wear and tear than when I have one bend with 500 pounds on it, right? So can we trade? Can we find a bargain between doing 500 for 10 reps or 300 for more reps than that and still get the same kind of benefit? Is that a possibility? I don't know that it is, but it's worth discussing to see if we could, if we come to some understanding of what might be the best thing, then we would prescribe in our training programs the number of reps versus the weight, and try to guess at how much wear and tear that does on every knee.
For us now, or looking back?
No, for people that we're training.
Okay, so looking
back. So here's
back.
A perfectly healthy dude who thinks I can just do this as much as I want and nothing bad's ever going to happen because that's not going to wear out, because it's not wearing out now. Right? And so can we, so I guess what I am trying to, there's that hamstring again. Sorry. I guess what I'm trying to, I gotta drink my water. I guess what I'm trying to get at, Dave, is...
You need more water?
No, I have some right here, but I do gotta drink it. Can we play around with the idea for a while? Not now, but as time goes by. What's the number of reps that it's gonna, with the reps and we're going to factor two things in: how much weight and how many bends. And what's the perfect number? What's a better number to program in? More bends with less weight, less bends with more weight. How do I set my program up to save joints and get stronger?
Well, the way, if it's a competitor, the way I look at this is I had two phases in my competitive career. There was the front end phase to where everything I was doing was looking forward. Within the next 2 years, I want to do this. Within the next 4 years, I want to do this. So I want to total my elite. After I total my elite, I want to get into the nationals. I want to place in the nationals. It's moving forward. Then I started to get injured. That was my first pec tear. And then it was like, maybe I need to be done with this. It's been 15 years. Then when I made the decision to come to Westside, my whole philosophy shifted, because that decision to stay in the game, I made a deal with myself that I wasn't going to leave ever asking what if. So my worldview for powerlifting changed, because then it went from not 2 years from now, what am I going to do this year? And I don't give a shit what it's going to take to get there. That's what I'm going to do. Every meet. So now it was, how many years do I have left? Not 3 years forward. It's like, this extra year it's a gift. It's a blessing. I'm going to maximize the shit out of it. And so that shift took me to a completely different level.
I got to get more out of this year.
Yes. So
I may not have 3 or 4 years.
When I think of what you just said, my answer is, where does the lifter fall? Because if they fall here, looking forward, but if they're here on borrowed time, it's like, no, man,
time's running out.
You need to be at ease with whatever price you're going to pay. You need to understand that. You need to completely understand that. Not just think maybe, but think. Maybe you're going to need a hip replacement. Maybe you're going to be in a wheelchair. Maybe you're going to break your back. Are you okay with those? And just think about it. Just understand it. That person becomes that person that I think working with them becomes, how do you rein them back? Because you let them go, they're going to be like a raging pit bull because they want everything, This one is a different discussion. That person there, I'm basically saying, I don't know how much we can really impact this person, except keeping them motivated, keep them on track, and making sure they don't do really stupid shit, because they're on a trajectory that it's not going to end well.
It's got momentum.
Yeah, it's got momentum, and the outcome's probably not going to be what they want.
Freight train.
But somebody needs to be there to tell them when it's over. Because either the injury is going to put them out, or somebody has to be the realistic person to say, look, it's done. And we all know. We know people that should have been done, and they're still going.
Yeah.
They just, somebody needed to have that conversation to say, it's time. And we're not the NFL. You don't get cut.
No.
So they're done. Now, these people here, I like what you're saying.
Yeah, let's talk about those people.
Those
Let's talk about the
people,
kids and the people who say, all right, is there a best way to train so that I can mitigate and minimize the joint damage? So I'm not just going to do what is going to make me the strongest. I'm going to think about the bargain I can make between getting stronger and the joint stress. And so my question was, which has less joint stress? A heavy weight for fewer reps, or lighter weight for more reps. So one of them bends more times under a load, and one of them bends less time under a greater load. So I don't know the answer to this, right?
I don't either.
It's worth thinking about and kicking around and
I'm going to speculate and say, if I had to make a decision, I would look at technique first. If technique is on point.
Let's say it is. Let's say all things are equal, in fact.
If technique is on point, then I would be more inclined to say they're better off doing the submaximal to maximal loading than all the repetitions with the lighter stuff. Because it's just now, if it's not on point, now that joint load is going to be way worse.
Right. If they're out of position, right?
Yes.
Now you're doing more reps out of position. Gotcha.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Because now you're dealing with more than just the joints that are under load.
Right. But that's true, right? And I'm inclined to very much agree with you. But let's say that we have the ability to be both people. So it's one person who we're going to choose, and we're going to follow them through with less weight, more repetitions, or we're going to follow that same person, same form, same, like all things equal, identical twins, and they're going to
specificity removed. So it's not a competitor, so specificity is removed.
Yeah, let's just talk about the joint stress.
Okay.
We're talking about what I'm doing as I'm older, and my focus is on joint stress. And the question was, if I knew then what I know now, could I have changed my repetition and weight scheme to still have better joints and get a similar outcome? You can't get the same outcome from high reps, low weight as you can with low weight, high reps. They're not. But there's a place where they're close. I'm talking about that. We're compromising each, right? And we're trying to find a deal, a compromise between, getting stronger, getting what we want, and preserving the joint. Is there a best way to do that? Is there a best load to number of bends ratio? I don't know, but it's worth talking about. It's worth thinking about.
I have a bias. I definitely have a bias where my bias is going to say the less repetitions always is going to be better.
But that's more load.
That's more load.
So I get more grind.
Yeah, but there's
fewer of them.
Profession called occupational therapy.
Yeah.
Which evolves around people that were working in factories doing the same thing over
I've heard of that. Right.
over and over. So their joints are getting just pounded. Not loaded. Just over and over and over and over.
Okay. I think that's a good place to start looking, right?
Yeah.
Occupational.
But load is a factor. So it's an interesting.
Well, I just brought it up because we're talking about what I do now, and what I do now is I try to protect my joints as much as I can, get as much muscle work.
Yes.
So I do things the hardest way I can.
I do the same thing. We agree on that 100. I like the heavier stuff, but if I do the heavier stuff, it's 1 to 3 reps. It's never going to be higher. It's going to be heavy. But then all the accessories, the volume's gone. Like 1 to 2 work sets, slow, flexed. Exercise selection is based upon what I know my mind connection is with. If it's not there, I'm not going to spend the reps trying to relearn of movement. That it doesn't matter if it's this bicep movement or this bicep movement.
That's an excellent point. Do what we can do well now that our joints are, and not try to learn something new that's going to require lots and lots more
Absolutely.
repetitions. That's a very good point, too.
So I
like
look
that.
at everything from
that's a good
the
point.
number of reps and the quality of reps as well. And there's some sacrifices that I'm making there. I know doing my super heavy stuff isn't going to be the best, but what's the trade? And if I do that, the
It's
volume...
the emotional reward there.
Well,
Feels good. Feels good to move heavy weight. I miss it, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, big time. So, but that also means how's that going to wave into the whole training? What's going to change for the rest of the week? How's the volume going to be balanced? You know, and the most obvious, don't do what hurts.
Yeah.
Stay out of the range of motion that hurts.
But guess what? You and I and everybody out there knows, in quotation, air quotes, that if it hurts, it works. And the more it hurts, the more it must work, right?
Not the joint
Isn't
pain.
that? Oh, yeah. The more I can tolerate, the more I'm going to go, right? And I had this misconception, too, because I had a lot of data piled up where we spoke earlier. I had 10 years of data that the harsher I was on my body, the stronger my body got. I had data that proved unequivocally, lots and lots of data, 10 years of absolute proof that I was indestructible. And of course, I'm saying that facetiously, right? But I did have that data. That data was true. I brutalized myself. I went up and down, and nothing bad ever happened, right? So I was indestructible. I could do whatever I want, right? Well, guess what? No, you can't, right? And then you learn that. And so I didn't have any injuries back then, but now I've got terrible arthritis, not from the lifting, but I've had injuries. I've had muscle tears. I had a bicep tear. I had this quad tear. The quad tear was explainable. The bicep tear happened after my career. It's one of the only injuries I ever had in the gym. It happened in a warm-up set. I was going up to 40-pound curls on the preacher, a dumbbell, one arm, and I did it with a 15-pound dumbbell.
But still, I mean, even with your history, there will be people potentially listening to this, watching this, that's going to point, say, well, the way you trained is why you're messed up. Because they do that to me, right? The way you train is why your hips are screwed up. The way you train is why your shoulders are screwed up.
Yeah.
But here's the thing that I always find interesting. Never had any back problems. So how come you don't talk about the way that you trained your body was really good for your back? Never torn a bicep, never had a knee problem. You see, and never had elbow problems.
Yeah.
What are the most common injuries in powerlifting?
Sure.
Back,
all those.
knees. Never had any of those problems.
Right.
But let's not talk about what I did there.
Sure.
Let's talk about the hip replacement I had when I was 45.
Right. If you take steroids, or if you do something uncommon or unusual or extreme, that becomes the target and the easiest thing. When something goes bad, that's the easiest thing to blame. That's the obvious thing. Well, it was the steroids. It was your weight going up and down. It was all that heavy lifting, right? And that necessarily isn't true. And I point that out with myself. I lifted up here heavy and not down here. Well, what joints do I still have? I still have my shoulders and my elbows where I did all the heavy lifting, and I don't have my knees or my hips where I didn't do the heavy lifting.
Yeah.
So if heavy lifting is, and all my joints are the same age, Dave. So if heavy lifting was the cause of my joint problems, I'm going to argue exactly the opposite. I still have my shoulders. I still have my elbows. I do not have my hips and my knees. I'm going to argue that the heavy lifting actually wasn't the cause of my bad joints. They protected these. I still have them. They're not great, but, right?
Yeah, my
and
back's good.
Try to explain that. And so you'll explain that to somebody, Dave, right? And you'll look them in the eye and they'll go, oh, yeah, I see. So you were a bench press guy, but you lost your hips at 40. You still got your shoulders at 56. So, yeah, I see what you mean. It's protective. But in their subconscious, in the back of their mind, that bastard did all that heavy lifting. That's why he did that. And what does that do for them? We mentioned this earlier, you and I. It gives them a reason not to try to excel or not to try to lift things heavy. Because, hey, look, that dude lifted something heavy and something bad happened to him. So it must be because he did everything else normal. He drove his car, I drive a car. He eats food, I eat food. He sleeps in bed, I sleep in bed. We do everything the same. The thing that he did different and exceptional, and he went way far away with it, was he lifted a lot of heavy weights. And he's got bad joints. So, and this is faulty reasoning, of course,
exactly.
Right? This is a crime against logic, Jesus. But, you know, that gives them this out that I don't want to have muscle tears and bad joints. So I'm just not going to do anything extreme. I'm not going to lift any heavy weights. And you can imagine how they can twist that in. And even when they agree with you and they see your reasoning that this didn't happen because of bad technique, this didn't happen because I did something extreme, this didn't happen because I took steroids. Now, those could be of causes, but when they're not, and you try to move them off of that thing that they want to blame it on, so that they don't I don't want to take steroids. I don't want to gain all that weight. I don't want to do all that work. I don't want to make all those sacrifices. I don't want to put all that heavy weight on me. Okay, don't do it. But don't think those are what caused me, because they may or may not be. And when I tell you clearly that they're not, and I show you the way things are with my the juxtaposition of my hips and my missing hips and my intact shoulders, that doesn't, the math doesn't work if you do it that way. But they'll still add it up and get, he messed up.
Well, here's
because then they can blame me.
Yes.
Right?
But here's the super important takeaway for the washed up meatheads listening. Sometimes those people saying these things are going to be the medical professionals that are sitting across from you. So if you go to see a doctor because you have heart problems, right?
Yeah.
They start pointing steroid. That is going to be their first action on trying to treat, and then they miss what the real cause is, which could be an embolism or a valve issue or all these other things, because they went straight here.
That's their bias.
That's their bias, because you walked in, you're big, you're bald, it's got to be this. So you got to pivot them and say, now, what if I didn't look like this? What if this wasn't in my past? What would you do next?
Yeah.
And you have to do this. You have
to try, Dave. I mean, it's not easy.
It's not easy.
You have to find an exceptional doctor.
You do. And I've walked out of several doctors' offices because of things like this.
Yeah.
Where when I knew I had the right orthopedic, when he said, okay, we got 3 variables we need to look at. We need to look at genetics. We need to look at, body weight over a period of time for my hips, and what you did training-wise. Those are the 3 things. If I was to rank them, genetics first.
He was open.
Yes. He was like, but it doesn't matter, because this is where you're at now.
Right, yeah.
This is how to mitigate it moving forward. But a lot of people will go in and they'll get handcuffed by a family practitioner like that. And then all of a sudden, now they're on a host of medications they really don't need, because they're getting treated for something that's not the actual cause or the problem. So that is a huge,
and that's
thing.
That's not really our problem or our fault, but we have to deal with it.
Yes.
That's their bias. That's their fault. That's their problem, but we have to help them fix it, right?
Yes.
We have to guide them and, like you said, pivot them, and that's hard to do.
Yes.
Because we'll do the rational thing, and I'll lead them, my shoulders, my hips, my shoulders, my hips. I got my shoulders, don't have my hips. Can't do the lifting, right? Yeah, I see that. But still, I went into I got some renal problems and stuff, and so I went into a guy, and he was checking me out for, some bladder and renal stuff. And he said, you have to lose some weight. And at this time, I was about 10% body fat. And I had the beginnings of some abs, right? I was in pretty decent shape. And I was heavy, and I had a skewed BMI. So this is a guy who's an internal guy, doesn't know anything about athletics, muscle, nothing. But I said, well, I really don't have to lose weight, because I'm leaner than you are, Doc. I don't have to lose fat or weight. Do you want me to lose fat? Because I rarely show anybody my stuff, but I did. Cause I said, look, dude, I'm fairly lean at this point right now, and my BMI is up not because I'm overly obese. Because he said, you're obese, and I'm like, no, I'm not obese, Doc. I have a low body fat percent. I'm not obese. I'm heavy for the BMI retarded, but not retarded. It's not effective as a tool for measuring athletes, because our body weight comes mostly from muscle. And so the circumference of the arm doesn't come from fat, it comes from muscle. And so the BMI is good it's okay for other people. And so we went through this, and I explained to him, and he nodded his head, and he said, I see you're actually fairly lean, and I see that you work out, and I see that the BMI is, the skewing of it and putting you in the obese category is coming from the muscle. And I said, okay. And he said, but you still have to lose weight. and I thought, wow, that was completely useless.
Mm-hmm.
He agreed with me. He understood it. And he still advised, but you still have to lose weight.
Mm-hmm. Well, I've been to people like that.
Couldn't get past if this is the BMI, your recommendation as a doctor has to be for them to lose weight.
Yeah.
And we went through the whole thing, and it all added up to him, and he didn't change his recommendation.
Yeah. Now, I don't want people to misunderstand what we're saying here. You know, sometimes the doctors are right, too. You know, so you could go in there, and what they say is the problem could actually be the problem.
Oftentimes it is.
Yes,
right?
and there may be a lot of people that think they're 10% body fat, but they're 35. You know, so, and they do need to lose weight. So you just need to be able to ask better questions and be educated when you go in.
You need to self-advocate.
Yeah, that's a good word.
Yeah,
That's
if
a
you
good
walk in
term.
there and you're your stereotypical meathead and you don't know anything about the health conditions that could possibly be there, your questions are not good, they're not solid, then of course you're going to be judged based upon the bias they have. Mm-hmm. You know, if you have a clue what you're talking about and you can present things in a professional.
I had a clue, and I thought I presented it fairly well, but he wasn't moved. He wasn't
bad
budging.
doctor. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just gonna follow his. He's gonna follow the script.
And they're out there. There's a lot of bad doctors, a lot of good doctors. You just got to be able to navigate it.
Yeah, there is, but there's a if you're one of us, the washed up meathead group, you really have to work hard to find someone that understands what we did, and it's hard because of the level we did it at. So they understand what weightlifting is. They have kids that they treat, general practitioners that can bench 300. You know, they understand that, but they don't understand what happens up here because it's not the same.
No, it's not. It's not even close.
And they have a hard time, so they know a little bit about it, and you got to try to teach them what a 300-pound bench does to you, and a 400-pound bench does to you, and a 500-pound bench, and an 800-pound squat. What do those do? How is that different than what he's thinking weightlifting is? Because I went to a doctor, and for a year I told him, I said, you know, I set some world records and stuff. He didn't look me up at all. He didn't really care. He thought he knew what weightlifting was. And then one day, for some reason, we're in there talking, he's got his computer on, and he looks me up, and everything changed. When he saw the pictures of me, and saw how big, because I kept telling him, I used to be 350. That was my biggest. And I'm at like 260 at the time when I was talking to him. And he's like, you're too big, man. You gotta stop taking those steroids. And I'm like, I don't take steroids. I don't lift heavy. I'm not trying to look like this. This is leftover, doc. He didn't get that, right? He didn't get that. And he's still trying to drive me away from all the testosterone, which I have to take because of the inhibition, right? So he's like, did you get off the testosterone yet? And I'm like, no, I got to take it. I don't make it anymore. And I explained all that to him. As soon as he looked it up and saw the size and saw some of the covers of magazines or whatever. I don't know what changed his mind, but I know that moment did. And he's treated me different ever since. He sort of sees, wait, I didn't understand what level this was happening at. And every athlete sort of has this, that isn't a beginner. Doctors understand the beginner runner. They understand they understand maybe some recreational marathoners. They do not have any idea what we do.
No.
They do not have any idea of the supplemental regime or the eating regime or the stress on our bodies lifting heavy weights. Because they lift something heavy and they try to lift something they can't lift, whether it's a suitcase or something. So they think they know what strain is.
Yeah.
I know what strain is. I tried to lift a suitcase one time and I couldn't. I was really strained, and I know what muscle strain feels like because that is their reference point. It's like a doctor who the worst pain he's ever had was a hangnail. If that's all that he thinks the worst pain is, or the worst pain he ever had was a toothache, then that's his reference for what a 10 is. I had 2 hip replacements, I think 8 weeks apart. And the first time I got through it, and they marked all of the pain meds I took and the numbers that I said. This is an 8, this is a 9, this is a 6. And then I had the second one, and something was wrong, Dave. And I couldn't convince them that the old 10s can't get to this place I'm at now. I need a new scale. If you want to use the old scale, it's a 15 now. And there's no 15 on the old scale. And he would tell me, you gave a 10, or you gave a 6 last time, you gave a 10 at this point. And I'm like, it's not a 10. It's more than a 10 now. And they couldn't grasp this concept that what I thought was a 10 before and was the worst I'd ever had. Now something hurts more than that. What do I tell you? What number am I going to give you now? You don't have a scale for that. So let's change our scale from 1 to 100 now. So now this is a 20. What I experienced last time through was a 10. This is twice as bad as that. I didn't know about this. I had not felt this. This is awful. And it was hard getting through to them with that, you know? And so if somebody's reference for pain is the worst I had pain I was childbirth, or the worst pain I had was passing a kidney stone, or you can't compare your pain to somebody else's pain. And likewise, I want to get back to this. A doctor can't compare his effort and what's hard, and he's really working hard, to what we do. And so they don't understand stress and strain and
well, in comparison,
wear
could
and
somebody
tear.
that squats 315 know the strain of somebody that squats 700?
Well, okay, I can go two directions with that, and those are always cop-out answers. But because he's operating at 100% of his ability, that's the most he's ever strained.
Yep.
But the guy that's doing 700, that's the most he's ever strained. So relatively, they're both operating at the same place. But it's not the same effect on their body. So they feel it the same. They feel it as everything I got, I'm given. One guy's moving 3, one guy's moving 7. The repercussions of that on the body is different, though. But they both feel it the same, I think. I'm giving everything I got. Somebody asked me that once. I think I said this, but again, redundancy is not bad. They asked me, what's it feel like to bench 700? And I thought about it a little bit, and I said, it felt the same as when I benched 400, and that was all I could do. I got under that thing, and I felt like my eyes were going to come out. And I felt all this pressure, and I just kept pushing. And it got to this blind effort place. And it felt the same when I benched 700. I gave it everything I had. So, and I specifically try not to feel the weight. I call it not respecting the weight. When I take the bar out, I don't respect that weight. I respect my power. I see the power going up. The 700 goes up this way. The 700 doesn't push down on me, crush me. I see the power. I view it that way. And so I try not to feel what weight feels like. I don't want to feel the heft. I just want to feel power and do everything right. So I might not be a good one to ask about what the different effort levels of 400 and 700. Now, when you can bench 700 and you bench 400, there's a different feeling. But when all you can bench is 400, and it's everything you have, I think that might feel similar to if all you can bench is 600, and that's all you have.
Well, the other thing would be, and it's been the criticism of a lot of coaches that are not strong, is if you bench 500 compared to somebody that only benches 300, your perception of strength is completely different than the person that's benching the 300 if they're working with offensive linemen. The person at 300 is saying, hey man, that 225 for 10, can be perceived as a pretty good bench. For the other guy, that sucks.
Yeah.
But those are the mark of poor coaches at the same time.
Yeah.
Because the best coach is going to get the most out of the athlete, right? But the perception,
where they're at.
Yes, where they're at. But the perception of what's heavy to one to the other can go the other way. You're way too strong, then all of a sudden it's like, what the, they don't understand that the 315.
When a coach is really strong.
Yeah, super strong. Say they
trivialize
yes
somebody working their ass off at 400. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.